Episodes of the Green Corn Rebellion Show are brought to you by Addie's Sugar Shack, located at 6201 Northwest Expressway in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in the parking lot of Ten Gem. Addie's Sugar Shack specializes in unique and delicious shaved ice treats and bonus hot treats on the weekends. Come by Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. through 9 p.m., Saturday from noon to 7 p.m., and Sunday noon through 5 p.m. Get your cold sugar fix today. So, hello, this is the Green Corn Rebellion Show, and today I am here with Sarah Smith, who is a former candidate for Congress in Washington's
Nice.
which district? One state 10th for some reason, and one of the original Justice Democrat candidates in 2018. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Well, first thing I wanted to talk to you about was your campaign in 2018. Tell me what made you decide to run. Tell me how were things on the campaign trail back then. Um, Tell me about it.
For sure. Oh my gosh. I feel like that'd take at least 2 years to really get into. So I was actually nominated to run for through an organization that I'm sure everyone's heard of now called Brand New Congress. I was nominated alongside Ocasio-Cortez, Cori Bush, Paula Jean Swearengin, Amy Vilela, and we were all nominated by somebody in our community. So I kind of got the call from them and I was like, me? Why me? And they're like, well, we've looked at your resume with the work you've done, how involved you are, and doing a couple of back-to-back interviews. They're like, we really think that you could do it. We really think you'd be an amazing representative for your district. And I was like, well, you never know if you don't try. So I realized like no matter what, I would have regretted it if I never even tried. So I decided, all right, I'm doing this. I'm diving in. And it was kind of hectic. It's very weird. During the primary, you really have to fight, especially if you're kind of coming out of nowhere into the world of politics. You're an unexpected challenger to a sitting Democratic incumbent, which I was. I challenged Adam Smith in Washington's ninth, and he is well known for being the chair of the Armed Services Committee in the House. So he is kind of a formidable opponent. And in the very beginning, people really do ignore you, and you have to fight for space, especially as a woman in politics. You really have to fight to occupy space. And I think since the 2018 election, that's changed quite a bit. The way that the establishment now looks at challengers and challenger candidates. So they actually take them a little bit more seriously now, and they're starting to actually give them a little bit more space. I think some of it might be trying to appease them and trying to appease their supporters and prove that they actually are better, but they've realized they at least have to start taking them seriously. So it's changed a bit since I ran, but when I first ran, I really struggled to be seen. And it wasn't until I placed second. We have a top two primary in Washington State. So it's a jungle primary. So the top two vote getters get to move on to the general. So once I was in the top two, that's when everyone's like, oh, wait a minute. And then kind of took off. There's a running joke that I keep telling, which is there's no time in the world of politics. And it really is like days, kind of how we're with COVID right now, where all days are kind of blending together. I remember events that happened on the campaign, but I couldn't tell you when it was or at what point in the campaign it was. It's kind of like a nebulous cloud time. But it was really hectic. I think that there's a ton of pressure that goes along with it that a lot of people don't realize, especially as being someone who's just a regular working person who decided to run for office. It's public pressure and public eye and public responsibility that you weren't prepared for. You weren't trained for. Nobody taught you how to do this. There's no class you take in high school that can prepare you for it. There's no college course you can take. Sorry, my dog is insisting she sees something in the distance. But there's nothing that can prepare you for it. And so it was kind of hectic and chaotic. And you really have to, the campaign used to joke that we were building the car while the race was going. And that's pretty much it. With progressive campaigns, especially grassroots campaigns with all the funding and the difficulties of fundraising.
Episodes of the Green Corn Rebellion Show are sponsored by Oklahoma Progress Now. Oklahoma Progress Now is a 501c4 organization focused on building progressive power in Oklahoma. Their primary efforts are on developing progressive content for a 21st century audience, coalition, and capacity building across progressive organizations and causes, and working to see elected leaders who were more responsive to their constituents and the needs of the many. Areas of focus include progressive messaging and communications, coalition building and resource sharing, and focused progressive policy goals. You can check out their Twitch live streams, and they go live on Facebook on at noon, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Please support this organization. It's a really great organization. It's just getting started here in Oklahoma. Thank you. Now enjoy the rest of the video.
You really are kind of just slapping your campaign together as you go. And I think that it really makes you hone your instincts, learn to think really quick on your feet. But it's a lot of pressure, and it's changed a bit now since when I ran. But back when I was running, it really took a lot out of me. It takes a piece of you. But it's definitely worth it. I keep telling people, like, no part of me regrets the campaign at all. No part of me regrets running. No part of me would ever go back and change that. If I was given the same choice, I'd do it all over again. Things I do differently, but I'd do it all over again. It was really worth it. And I think that from a personal standpoint, and it's the part that the public didn't really get to see, it taught me a lot about myself. So I learned how to be more decisive, how to be more authoritative, how to speak up more in a room. I learned how to be a better ally. I learned about a lot of social justice issues I realized I had no clue about. I learned how to better position myself around social justice. I learned how to better position myself and how to better communicate with people about policy and complicated stuff that people really didn't get. The people that were like me, who may have thought taxes were boring, but then the more you run into the how do you pay for it question, the more you realize taxes are actually kind of fascinating. But how do you communicate that with people? And running for office really taught me a lot about how to do that. So it gave me a lot. It does cost, but it really does give you a lot more as a candidate too. So it was a really incredible experience. I'm still friends with almost everyone that I was volunteering with or that was volunteering for me. I'm still friendly with almost everybody that I connected with on the campaign. They've been really lifelong friendships. We kind of formed in a pressure cooker. So we like to say we added 5 additional years because we were doing so much in such tight quarters in such a short period of time. But it was definitely worth it. Hard, but worth it.
All right. That's interesting. So what have you been doing since 2018?
Oh man, a lot. So I took some time off. I really had to step back. I had some personal stuff that was going on, and I was like, I need to take time to deal with this now. So I handled some personal stuff that was going on. I've been involved with the Working Families Party of Martin Luther King County, which is King County up in Washington. I've been doing a lot of work with Brand New Congress. I was the fundraising director and communications advisor for the Chris Armitage campaign that was running earlier this year. I've been focusing on getting my master's in public administration. I'm getting certified in contracts and procurements, and I started a garden. But I've been doing a lot of stuff. I've been being more involved with the Beth Doglio campaign in Washington's 10th, which has been really great. I've been trying to do some more stuff with local campaigns. I was going to do ballot chasing for Charlotte Mena in the 29th LD, which is where I just moved to. But she ended up not making it into top 2 by 100 votes. So local elections, if you ever think your vote doesn't matter, it really matters. Put your ballot back in the mailbox. But I've been focused on doing a lot of that stuff. I'm trying to get more involved with the Progressive Caucus in Washington. I was very involved with them, and then I took a step back, and now I'm starting to get back into it and do more work with them and do more outreach and stuff. COVID's been kind of hard to do things, so it's weird to try and get together digitally and do stuff over the internet. But I've been really fortunate that the Working Families Party in King County has been really good at adapting to this, which has been fantastic. So I've been busy.
Yeah. You said you were working with the Chris Armitage campaign. I had him on my show some months ago. What ended up happening with his campaign?
Chris he's a really wonderful person, and working with him was really great. I think he's a really gentle guy, and was very much so dedicated to it. But he lost a friend to suicide back in February, I think it was. And since then, after that, he really started to struggle. And he really wasn't minding his mental health as much as he should have. And every time we'd check in, he was struggling to be honest about it with people. And we could really watch him like sliding into deep depression. And then there was a local accusation made by somebody that he dated that said that it wasn't the way that he recalled the relationship. And he really felt horrible. And he was like, oh my gosh, am I not the person that I really want to be in this moment? And we had a long conversation. And after he realized, like, I think this is too much. I don't think I can be myself right now. Um, and he was really struggling. And so we sat down as a team and we said, talk to us about what's going on. And he kind of gave us more insight into what he was dealing with. And I'm a big proponent, especially with political candidates, of taking care of your mental health. I struggled really hard, and I don't like to watch candidates I'm working for struggle. And after I listened to him talk and give us more information about what he was going through, I told him, I think the best thing to do is step back. And he's like, I don't want to let everyone down. And I told him, you're going to let everybody down if you slip away. And so I think it's better to bow out now and then prepare the movement in Eastern Washington for the next great candidate that's going to come along. And we made the tough decision as a team, but it was the right choice. And he's doing much better now. He went to go visit family, and he's back in town closing things down. But we've been in touch off and on, and he's doing significantly better. But it was kind of a scary moment for him when he really realized how far he'd fallen away from himself. And so I think that it was the right choice. It was a hard choice, of course. Like, choosing to step out of a campaign is always difficult, but I think that was the right choice for him. And I'm proud of the way he made it. I'm proud of the way he spoke up about what he was going through.
All right. I wasn't aware of any of that.
Oh yeah,
I
most
just,
people weren't.
yeah, last time I had chatted with him was like maybe May or something like that, maybe June, I don't know, somewhere in there. And then he disappeared, never heard from him again. I was like, okay, I hope
Yep.
everything's okay. But yeah,
And that's the insidious bit about mental health. I think people don't get, and it's one of the part of the trouble of being a candidate or being a public figure at all, is it's really difficult. Nobody really sees it, and I think that's one of the benefits that I walked away from my campaign with, is I can spot it in candidates from a mile away, and I try to use that power for good. Reach out to candidates that I think are struggling, and be an open door to anybody that's running for something, and just let them know, come talk if you need to talk. But I think that's the really difficult part, is we know in our friends when something happens, we're like, how could I not have known? And it's the same with public figures. How could you not have seen it? And he's such a happy-go-lucky, boisterous person that to watch him talk about how he was feeling just felt like I was looking at a totally different person. And I think that's the tough part about mental health, is not being able to see it and having to keep it to yourself for so long, and feeling like you have to, especially as a political candidate, feeling like you have to be strong, and being strong is not dealing with mental illness. And I think it was the right choice, but it's a hard one for people. It kind of came out of nowhere because he's such a boisterous, happy-go-lucky guy that it's tough.
all right. Well, I hope he continues to feel better um, and whatnot. Um, the next thing I wanted to talk about was, tell me about what's going on with progressives and socialists in Washington State in reference to the Democratic Party. How's the successes going on with that? Tell me about that.
Washington has always been kind of a unique political battleground. Because of our top two primary, the jungle primary, there's opportunities for socialists to take over positions and democratic socialists take over positions. DSA has city council seats in Olympia. I think we've got a couple in Tumwater. There's a few in some of the smaller cities around the area, but they've managed to secure a bunch of local seats. And I think that they're really starting to build up a stronger movement than we had in 2018. The Democratic Party here they've always been pretty strong about embracing progressive values, and they're not perfect. I don't think the party anywhere is perfect, but they definitely are actively trying to be. We have a lot of overlap between some of our folks that are part of the Democratic Party's Progressive Caucus up here in Washington, and they also go to DSA meetings. We have some folks that form alliances and form networks with the socialist alternative folks. But they really are starting to build up a more charged movement. And I think it's hard for people to understand because I think of Seattle as the progressive value bastion. We have Shama Sawant on our city council in Seattle, so we think that we have a really big stronghold of socialism and democratic socialists here in Seattle, but we actually don't. We're not as far left as people think up here. And so I think we've been doing a really good job of getting that message out. Both DSA and SA and the Progressive Caucus have been doing a really powerful job of getting that message out that we're not as progressive as we think we are. And the Black Lives Matter movement up here in Seattle has been really telling. The way that our city council has been reacting to that has been really telling. Jenny Durkin being at war with our folks up here, other mayors in other towns like Bellevue that are really fighting back against any Black Lives Matter efforts. It's starting to show, and I think I feel like Washington is having its own internal reckoning of how progressive are we really. And so it's been kind of an interesting spot to see, but I think the coalition building between all the socialist organizations and all of the far left organizations is getting a lot stronger here. So I'm really hoping that people can start to set their sights on more local seats. I've said this even when I was running in 2018. I said all the time, local politics is where the real power is to change your neighbors' lives. And I really hope that our leftist coalitions can actually see that up here. I know Working Families Party has been really busting to make sure we get people in that are fantastic representatives for their community. We've been very successful as an organization. We flipped a lot of seats on the SeaTac City Council, on Tukwila City Council. We've done some work with Renton City Council. We've really done the work in the suburbs to create these more progressive coalitions on city councils. We've been very effective. And I hope that other far left organizations take a page from our book and start stacking their deck for local seats. So I think when we run for Congress, when we think about politics, we shoot for the moon, right? We want a congressional seat. We want a Senate seat. But the reality is, and the thing I really want to see the left start to do more of, is building that groundswell is the thing that we always forget to do. So we kind of just try to jump to the top of the mountain and we forget that you have to start at the bottom and climb it. And I'd really like to see Washington and our far left organizations start to build that groundswell better, start to take over those city council seats, start to take over those House rep seats, those state Senate seats, and then build that into a congressional seat. It's the thing that the Tea Party did. Over 30 years, it took them to take power. And I think they only took something like 10 or 11 seats over the course of 3 cycles, but that was enough to sway the entire party farther to the right. And I think that the far left movement has the ability to do that, but we have to start with the Tea Party model. We have to start the groundswell of taking over school board seats. We have to start taking over the hospital commissioner seats. We have to start taking over the water board seats. We have to start taking over all of these much smaller seats and building that groundswell in order to make actual change and take over those actual big high level seats. I know that people are really frustrated with the Democratic Party, and they're saying that they rigged the election against Bernie again, and it's frustrating, and we're really disheartened as a movement. But I think the thing that we need to focus on as a movement is, yes, they did, but they had the power to do it because they built that groundswell. And we can do the same thing, but we have to build the same axis of power, and we have to do it the same way. I wish that it was different. I wish that we had a stronger ability to get third parties recognized and funded. I wish that we were able to, that we didn't live in a capitalist system that forced us to deal with things like campaign finance. But we don't live in that world yet. So we have to focus on building our power the same way that they did. Use their own playbook against them. Taking over those local seats, building that groundswell, building that power, building that network, building that coalition. That's what's going to get us those seats. And it won't be immediate. It'll be a slow burn. But I think it's possible and doable. And I really genuinely feel like in Washington, we're finally starting to see the left figure that out and coalesce together and be like, actually, we can target these city council seats and make change at the city level. And I'm like, finally, yes. So I'm optimistic. I think we're finally starting to make headway with folks, and people being at home for COVID, they're finally starting to pay more attention. They're starting to realize how much local politics matters, how much it actually affects their ability to do things. And I'm really optimistic that we have that. I think in 2022 and 2024, we're going to see a lot of knockouts of longtime representatives at the local level. That's going to make a lot of change for the left up here.
See, that's good. That's what I like to hear, because I keep telling people, like, just because Bernie lost and almost won, but lost, doesn't mean that it's over for the left. It doesn't mean that the left can't take over the Democratic Party. It doesn't mean that, the left can't ever win. It's how we're doing it. Just having one person at the top at every 4 years isn't really going to do it. You have to start from the bottom and then work your way up. It's not, I mean, what is that? I tell people like the Democratic Party, like the third way neoliberal DLC Democrats, it took 20 years for them from George McGovern in 72 to 92 with Bill Clinton to actually take over the Democratic Party. It'll take time. It's not going to just happen tomorrow.
Yep.
Exactly. I find it funny when I see people say things like, "Oh, it's just not going to happen." I'm like, no, just give it some time. It'll
tomorrow
happen.
it won't happen. But I mean, we used to say that about Medicare for All, right? We used to say Medicare for All, it'll never happen. Like, I really want it. It'd be such a great dream, but it's never going to happen. And now it's one of the linchpin platform issues for people. Now there's like an entire caucus about Medicare for All. Like, we've changed, and that's only in 4 years that we've done that work. Like, imagine what we're going to do in 20 if we just stay the course and stay focused.
Yeah, I just I didn't but yeah, that's good. You guys are doing good things in Washington. I really like hearing that. And the last question I have here is, what kind of music do you listen to?
Oh man, I honestly was just talking to my partner about this like maybe 24 hours ago. I do not believe in binding myself to one genre of music. I listen to a little bit of everything. So I know you're a heavy metal guy. I listen to a little bit of Two Cents and Byzantium. I also love myself some Sturgill Simpson and some Talking Heads. I also love garbage. I also love Taylor Swift. I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. It's kind of embarrassing. But I love everything. I have a classical music playlist. I have a random 60s playlist. Like, I listen to a little bit of everything. So I try not to bind myself to one thing. But I listen to a smorgasbord of stuff. My my Spotify is very confusing. If you listen to it, it's like, what mood were you in when you put this on here? I never know.
That's cool. Do you like Limp Bizkit?
I can't say I've listened to enough of them to know for sure if I do. I only listened to like the two songs that were popular when I was in high school in like 2002. It was Disney, I know, but
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. Where can we find you on social media?
Of course, I can be found dominantly on Twitter and on Instagram, same handle at Sarah SARAH Smith, the number 4, and then WA. It's same handle on Instagram and on Twitter. I don't have a Facebook anymore. I took a break from Facebook and deactivated it, and it is the greatest thing I've ever done for myself. But I still love Instagram because I love watching soothing baking videos, and I'm still on Twitter because I like following on trends and just really hating the internet for 10 minutes. So
All right. Thank you.
thank you so much.